Hey Leo, it's currently 8:23 p.m. on Saturday, May 30th, 2026. I'm here in Saigon, Vietnam, and here on a what I call emergency vacation. I haven't done these in a while, but basically, whenever I feel blocked or need to come up with some new ideas or make some big decisions, I generally try to remove myself from the familiar environment and isolate myself in a new place in hopes of having the new environment sort of trigger new thoughts and ideas. And it generally pretty works. It works pretty well. I've been here for I think 6 days, and I'm headed back to Korea tomorrow. And yeah, Korea itself has been sort of a transitionary period because I decided actually to move back to Silicon Valley where basically all the action is. And yeah, this brings us to sort of like the topic of this discussion as an update of Hypersonic and what I'd like to really do with turning it back into essentially a product studio, what I like to call a frontier AI consumer, actually a frontier AI product lab or a consumer AI lab. And what that means is instead of just creating Helix, which we've been doing, and we are still focusing on Helix, but with the sort of advancements of AI and how great it's becoming, we want to return to our roots because I don't know if a lot of people might not know, but like Hypersonic was initially founded in 2019 as a product lab, right? I worked on a bunch of different ideas. I got introduced to Shanna at Third Kind through Alex, and the initial deal was, hey, here's a little bit of money, figure out what you want to make a bunch of stuff, and then if something's good, or if you want to pursue something, come back and she was going to introduce me to some other investors. That's exactly what happened, and that's why we've been focusing on Helix for a while. And we're also trying to get ready for Series B round because it's already been 2 years since we raised the Series A. And yeah, I mean, in the current climate, you basically need users and traction and revenue in order to actually raise a Series B. Helix is getting there, and I'll explain more as well. We're about to make like a pretty big exclusive partnership with like a pretty well-known streamer to bring over his server over to Helix, which would be a massive win and immediate sort of traction with sort of the pilot servers. But besides that, I have always really been fascinated about multiple ideas, and I think if I were to play to my strengths, and of course the strengths and weaknesses, but I think some of the strengths are mostly on the ideation side and the strategy side, and pretty much, especially on the design front, right? How do you take something that already works? How do you take technology that already exists and wrap it in sort of a new and innovative way, in a very user experience friendly way that becomes genuinely useful for the end user. And Helix itself, if you think about it, is almost a useful wrapper around Unreal Engine 5. It's an incredibly powerful game engine that's still a little bit technical to use. So Helix Studio is essentially like abstracted layer on top of that provides similar APIs and payments. And we have like Lua scripting and templates. We have the whole open world map that we're open sourcing. So essentially, a lot of these concepts of like the products that I usually try to create or attracted to creating happen to be sort of consumer-based products with a nice layer of design and user experience on top. Where in fact, that is sort of the central point of the products that we create. And so with AI, it's really enabled much quicker development of these things. Initially, when I started it, the reason it's called Hypersonic is it refers to 5 times the speed of sound, right? I basically said, hey, I think I'm able to make products. At the time, it was just myself, right? I'm able to design and develop and launch and market and get these products out much faster, 5 times faster than any other competitor out in the market. And now, really, that's becoming even faster because of AI. Of course, everyone has access to AI as well, but I think even given the same tools, with the right attitude and the right structure and the system in place, we could still be able to get these things out much faster and iterate much quicker. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, with enough iteration cycles, you'll eventually get to whoever you're trying to get to, right? And AI just happens to be like massively paralyzing, so you can't really beat AI in terms of iteration. But anyway, I recently also wrote this document called, or essay called The Great Liberation Manifesto, in collaboration with Jack2, which is my AI clone. And I tried to I literally woke up one morning, this is like a month ago in London, and really early, and I just was talking to Claude, and I don't know where it kind of started, but I started talking to it, and I'd been reading the Andrew Carnegie biography, or listening to the audiobook for a while, and I guess it's a mix of that and a bunch of other stuff that kind of got mixed in, and then I decided, hey, I want to create a single sort of like statement piece that sort of like outlines my vision of how I think the world is going to be, right, in the next, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 years. And ultimately, the gist of it, it's on my website now. It still needs a few more edits, but the gist of it is that basically cost of production of software and hardware and everything is essentially going to go to zero, right? And we'll have pretty much like great abundance and sustainable abundance is I think what SpaceX and Elon likes to call it. But I like to call it the Great Liberation. It's kind of like the Great Depression, but the opposite, where we just have a lot of everything and things will be cheaper. And we'll have a form of universal basic income, but it's like, even because the cost of goods go down so much, even without getting paid like tens of thousands, like hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, you'll still be able to afford the same luxuries, if not much more, than what you'd be able to afford today. So in that, there's a couple of core pillars of that, and a couple of sort of like assumptions that need to come true to make that happen. But the biggest one I would say is just like AI, right? Like the abundance of AI that makes work essentially go to zero. Human robots and just robotics in general that also affect the hardware side of things in the labor market. So those things I eventually want to target, but right now the most relevant one of those pillars would be simulation. So a core part of that thesis of the Great Liberation Manifesto is that there are certain things that we cannot like have in abundance, even if we had like robotics and AI, right? For example, the beachfront property, right, or like in Manhattan Skyview, that's like on one of those like billionaires' row. There are like scarce resources for those things. There's only one Manhattan. There's only one of those types of things. So how do you have normal people experience things like that? Those probably are like very good examples. They're much better concrete examples for this argument. But in that case, the answer I believe is basically Neuralinks. Like whatever Neuralink is pursuing, I like to call it mind linking. So before I used to call it like brain jacking, but mind linking sounds a little bit more friendly. So, and by the way, this is not like a forced upon everyone, right? So this would be another form of entertainment essentially. That if you look at the history of sort of computing and in general, actually entertainment and games, it's always been pushing the boundaries of immersion, right? So we started with just like text-based, like Pong, for example, and then like PlayStation 1, it was like one of the first times that we had 3D graphics, and then PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3. Every leap in generation of consoles and entertainment generally bring us towards, it's all about like how does it feel much more, how do I feel like I'm actually in there? But there's nothing that will actually get us closer to it than actually experiencing it ourselves. VR is also sort of a shim if you think about it. The way I like to, I guess the best analogy I could think of is like, say you're trying to rob a bank, right? And funny example. Say you're trying to rob a bank. Say you and I are gonna go rob a bank later, right? So there's these like advanced security cameras. There's a network of hundreds of security cameras throughout. VR is basically like going up to one of those cameras and like putting a tablet in front of it that has like a view of like an empty hallway, right? So that like you kind of trick it into thinking it's like looking at an empty hallway, whereas like you and I were actually gonna go through the hallway and rob and steal a bunch of shit. So that's like VR, because we're basically just like tricking stuff into like looking at it. Whereas mind linking is essentially, you just hack into the system and you just direct wire, you feed in like live wire the data that the camera actually, the data feed it has and the data code, like the encoding or whatever, directly into it without needing to touch or put anything in front of it. And so you basically have one-to-one feed, right? That's essentially what it is. We have to reverse engineer the neural signals and how we, all of our peripherals and sensory, and how that's actually encoded and transported and sort of like processed within the brain, and then basically just feed it in, right? So yeah, so that is eventually going to happen, right? Like we're already looking into this, and this is something that I'm super passionate about. But I think that's so much linked to the idea of virtual worlds and what we're pursuing with Helix. So I guess like the short of it, what I'm trying to get to, is the Great Liberation Manifesto, I believe, is a big sort of, like my vision of what the future looks like. And I really want to turn Hypersonic into the vehicle or the apparatus or the platform that helps at least achieve my vision of the reality. And I think ultimately it'll benefit humans. I think it'll be a boon to humankind if we achieve these things. And it's inevitable. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of how soon can we get it. And the sooner we can get it, the more happier people will be. And of course, there's going to be a period of sort of like sorrow or despair when a lot of jobs are lost and governments cannot keep up fast enough for the pace of technology and the layoffs and stuff like that. So the answer is always probably somewhere in the middle, right? It's neither like super drastic nor super like casual, but Anyway, all this to say, the other pillars of that are like basically the main pillars are humanoid robotics, AI, virtual like basically mind linking, and then virtual worlds simulation that's included as part of that, and then space as well. So these are things that I eventually all want to tackle, and like I think working within this whole roleplay scene gives me a pretty clear view of like how roleplay and jobs are essentially going to be. Is a lot of jobs, people really like doing their jobs, right? This concept of ikigai, and it brings value and meaning, like whether it's EMS or social workers or teachers or government workers, even my job, right? Like this, what I'm doing, building products. Eventually, there's going to be AI that's going to be better at me than what I'm doing, coming up with different ideas, executing them, hiring people. Probably you don't even need to hire people right at that point because of AI. Basically, all this stuff, at least for me, it's very, I enjoy doing it. So even if I wasn't getting paid or if there's no money, I would still be doing it. So for those people, I think it would just be a secondary sort of like either people that want to purchase goods and services that are produced by humans, although it like could technically be more efficient doing it somewhere else. I guess a good example would be like calligraphy or like, I don't know, like you go to watch a stage play, right? Like, or yeah, I guess a good example is inkjet prints, right? You get something like a print that's like really, really precise. If you use one of those industrial printers, yet still people prefer to purchase oil paintings that are made by humans. So I think that's what it ends up being, and so there'll be like two-sided, one or two ways. One is like people that selling to people that like prefer those things to be human made, and secondly, pretty much just like simulation, right? Like you're just doing it for the sake of doing it, and I think a form of that is like role play servers right now in GTA. There's like people that are role playing as police in there for literally like 20, 30, 40 hours a week, and they have another job, like 9 to 5 job somewhere else, but they very much look forward to coming home after their 9 to 5 job and doing another 9 to 5 on police duty or doctor or lawyer or whatever it is. It's a really, really interesting sort of market, and I don't think a lot of people actually know what's going on in there. But for us, with Helix being so deep in that space, we fully understand and understand the motivation of why people want to do that. I just think it's going to be, the future is basically going to be an exaggerated version of that, right? As more of these platforms get more immersive. So I guess I never got to finish that thought, but like, yeah, the more we always as humans want to pursue some form of roleplay and higher form of immersion. So starting from computer graphics and then eventually to full sensory sort of replication and synthesis. So I believe that pillar is covered by Helix. It's a decade-long, multi-decade-long thing that I'll be doing, and I don't think I'll stop anytime soon until we get to that point where we really have mind linking. And I believe, yes, we're not dealing with Neuralink and any of these like hardware stuff right now. We're just a software platform, and yet we're still yet to launch. But that is just like at least the scope of how I'm thinking, and I've always thought about that, even starting at 6 years ago, and I think it's much more relevant even now. So we've got to start somewhere. We're going to dominate a small niche and expand. But for us, the niche that we're dominating, that we want to dominate, happens to be this the role play side, and especially high fidelity. We're aiming for that end of the market, right? So Roblox has captured the lower end of the market, where pretty much the thing runs on anything, probably like running on a graphing calculator or like a fridge, but and that's why it has so many users. But at the same time, their users are a lot younger, and our users tend to be a lot older and are able to afford the $1,000, $2,000 gaming PCs to run Helix on, and it's just a much more immersive experience. So the creator tools that they have access to are a lot more powerful, like Unreal Engine itself, compared to something like, I guess, Roblox Studio. So anyway, that's the whole Helix side of things, and I'm really, really extremely dedicated to making that work, and being the sort of the de facto high fidelity immersive platform. So VR is definitely sort of like on our radar, even though that's not the biggest market, I believe, and it's not necessarily growing per se, but I do think that is the closest thing we have to like having total immersion. It's just a very hard problem to solve due to optimization and rendering and things like that. But yeah, I really want Helix to be the main platform that people go towards, not just roleplay, but like education, simulation, anything that involves simulations, and then eventually we just have to expand that platform. And the second thing, I guess, is I wrote another essay about this, basically about how SaaS and basically selling software, renting software is kind of dead. And that kind of manifestation of that is a new project that we have called Silo. It used to be called Duo. I think I talked about it in the last London video, but this is something I've been working on a lot on my own sort of I wouldn't call it spare time. It's just part of work, so I'm working like 2 full-time things right now with Helix and Silo. But I'm really passionate about this whole AI space, and I think the big thing for me was the open cloud moment. I think everyone had that in January when something like that came out. Looking back at it now, it's such a simple, sort of like funny thing, but at the time we didn't have anything like that. This idea of like AI agents were sort of no one really knew or experienced it. And as a technical person, it took me like a day or two to figure it out, and it kept breaking. And so my initial idea with Duo was to make a much more consumer-friendly version of it that's much more well-designed from a user experience perspective. And eventually that morphed into something else. So now Silo is pretty much a sovereign AI operating system. And the sovereign part is really important here because it runs on your device. It's going to be fully open source. And pretty much, you can think of it as like the software that replaces all software that you need. Like on a given day, you probably are using or subscribe to a lot of different SaaS like tools, right? So there's like Notion that I use for all my note taking. And even I guess like it's more relevant for software companies and founders as well, which I am. So I'm pretty like, I myself would be the perfect sort of customer for this product, and that's why I'm building it. Is I felt a need to, like, why am I paying Slack like $600 a month? Again, that's not the basic. Like Notion, for example, right? And then they have to charge like $20 more per person per seat just to access like additional AI features. All these things are like, we're already at a point where software can clone most of the software anyway, and it's only going to get better. So the idea behind that thesis really is, in addition to the Great Liberation Manifesto, the other essay that I wrote in the prediction, it's pretty much that, like all software will essentially be free, just like air, because you don't really see people selling like air, you know what I mean? The only people selling air are like compressed air or like filtered air, like for medical supplies. Like these are convenience things, things that are just like a lot harder for people to do. But air itself is like so abundant that no one's really like just charging you air. Water bottles are a great example as well. So Silo is the ultimate manifestation of that particular vision. Is I believe it's also liberating, and the more people have access to great software that's free, the more productive people will be, and better collective production or like productivity of humans equals it's like more things being created. It's like if you increase the efficiency of the tooling, then of course the output's going to be better, right? There's going to be more output. Yes, there's more slop as well, but again, these tools are going to increase. So in productivity and efficiency. So I'm kind of jumping all over the place right now, but those two are like my biggest focus right now, and I've been putting in like 18, 19-hour days essentially for the last like 2-3 months. Just initially with Silo, I was building a lot of it myself with Cloud Code. I ran out of the subscription, subscribed to Codex. And then I put together like a small team to kind of help me with that. So that's part of the things that I have to assess, and part of why I came here is to figure out how to make a good, clear decision on how to proceed with the team structure and everything. But AI is the place to be right now. Consumer AI is still pretty much untapped. Silo has really big potential, not just for consumers, but also for enterprise. And there's also a pretty solid business plan behind it. I think that the concept of giving away the product for free, they can use it. For people that want to self-host it on their own computer and extend it, like we'll make not a single cent from those users, but that's fine. So a lot of it is the distribution side, and then the convenience factor is what we sell. So the built-in models that we have that are much more efficient, built-in hosting, cloud hosting, backup, the data centers, the inference, right, that are on the same data centers as the actual cloud pod hosting. All these things are, I believe, most people just want to click a button and sign up and use it, right? So that's the business model behind that. And the vision for it is quite large. It's essentially replacing hundreds of applications, and it's about also becoming a platform, right? So I've always wanted to create like platforms and tooling for people to create on top of. Helix itself is a pretty big platform in that sense, and I think a lot of learnings that we've had building that, it naturally translates over into this Silo AI OS side of things. So we'll have a whole, just like we have the Helix sort of API to build worlds on top of, we'll have the Silo API for developers to build apps on top of it and publish it through our hub. So I don't want to bore you with too many details, but that's it. So my vision for Hypersonic and for Series B is to pitch ourselves as the frontier AI product lab, focusing on consumer AI software. And I have a whole bunch of ideas. Literally, I have a document with like 50 plus, 100, whatever plus ideas. Another one is actually a code name Foodseed, but it's like a global database of all the menu items in the entire world. So it solves the core problem. If you go to a new restaurant, you don't really know what to order, right? So you look at the menu, but then the menu doesn't have all the pictures of everything, just only of the certain signature dishes. Oftentimes, not even at all. And you have to ask the waiter, hey, what do I get? And then depending on who you're asking, you always get different results. So anyway, that's a whole different thing. I don't want to get too distracted by that right now, but that's a good example of like how I want to operate Hypersonic is we have these like frontier products that we're creating, and of course the team structure has to be in place, and we're going to be leveraging AI into whatever that we're doing. Most of the products will be created by AI in the first place, but every team does need sort of a lead and a proper organization. So ideally, what I've always wanted to do was actually partner with an existing agency. So especially a design focused, like a design creative agency that handles development as well, that has engineering resources. So then Hypersonic could become a very asset-light company that provides a lot of the ideation, the strategy, and distribution, and the capital. And that's one thing I'm also confident about. I believe I can sell the vision behind the product and do the fundraising for it, assuming we, of course, have the right team and traction in place. But that's how I'd like this new version of Hypersonic to be. And having the last 7 years of operations, I think I've done a lot of things, that I could have done better. I mean, and there's been successes and failures, but certainly, if I had told myself like 7 years ago that I'd be at this place now, I'd actually be quite disappointed. And you could say like stress equals expectation minus reality. So you could say that I've been in a constant stressed, massive stress state for the last 7 years. And I've always used this analogy of like, I think my standards is like something that I don't want to necessarily compromise on. And if I'm trying to build like, I always say it's like a Rolls Royce, right? Out of like Honda Civic parts. Like yes, it's possible, but it's like very, very difficult. But maybe the right answer is to just build the Honda Civic first, right? Just get to the point B, and then you can keep upgrading and adding kits on top of it and engine upgrades. Maybe that's the right thing to do, but I think I have this particular vision of like how this perfect product should generally be, and but yeah, again, I don't want to necessarily compromise on that, even if it takes a while. And I think we'll have a breakthrough moment soon, hopefully. And I'm willing to do whatever to make that happen, right? And we need to shift resources around. Of course, like being a startup, we need to also conserve resources, which is why we haven't been based in the U.S. Right? As a U.S. company, a lot of our investors are international as well. But like that's why we moved to London and Guildford, which is like a lot cheaper compared to the U.S. Plus, they have government subsidies for game development. And then I've also been considering, opening up offices, maybe potentially in something like Seoul or wherever. But AI is really changing that, and the recent realization is like, you know what, like even if it is more expensive, it does make sense to go to Silicon Valley, right? So that is still the goal. It's just I want to have something that is actually out there in the market and growing, and then be able to make their transition there, and then aggressively seek capital, and then with that capital hire the best of the best. That's the story of my life, probably in the last, entire career. Is I've never been able to afford the types of people that I believe, basically world-class talent costs world-class money, and I think the constant battle of how do I conserve as much capital as possible to try to extend the runway, but at the same time, how do we hire really good people, right? So I think that's something that, as a founder, I've learned the hard way, and so I want to do it the proper way now with this new update. So that's it. Helix coming along well. This is taking a lot longer, and that's just the realization. It's like I was talking to our investors about this, it's like something that I would have thought would have taken $2 million in like a team of 20 people, maybe less, 10 people, actually turns out, requires like $20 to $50 million and like 50 people to 100 people. But we're still trying to make it work, and I think that's another advantage we have is like we won't die. We'll survival. We'll survive, and we have to go from the survival to the thriving mindset as soon as again the product is out there. And I think it's just taken way too long for us to get any sort of product out in the market, and that's my fault. And we need to learn from that and just like cut scope and just focus on users. We definitely expanded scope quite a lot, like with Helix Live. All these things I know for sure they're going to work, and I will literally bet my life on it. I have been betting my life on this. Uh, and it's all gonna work out. It's just I don't know, Leo. It's hard, man. It's really uh, yeah. I don't know, like do it. I'm not looking for pity here, but 쉽지 않다. um, I mean, I had this whole like agenda, and then I ended up just deviating completely and jumping all over the place, which is like how my mind is right now. But yeah, the Great Liberation Manifesto, simulation. I really want to target those pillars, right? So virtual worlds, I'm already targeting with Helix. Entertainment and film and media, all these things are separate. So again, I guess like when I was 18, I really have like 5 pillars that I really wanted to tackle, and I wanted to achieve mastery in all these 5 different things completely independently of each other, which is why I came up with all these alter egos and different names for each one. I didn't want the success of one to affect the other, and I ultimately wanted to demonstrate that, hey, look, I'm not necessarily any special or smart. It's just that I think I learned how, or at an early age, I learned how to learn, and I wanted that to be sort of like the one thing that I can prove and say, I told you so. It's like before I die, like in my deathbed, I can just say, hey, look, like I set out when I was 17, 18, just to prove this point that I could do all these things, and just to prove the point to people that everyone can, like anyone can do it. Okay? So yeah, those 5 things were business, technology, music, art, and film. And I am kind of dabbling in all these things, but I guess just trying to do all of them at once is a little bit difficult, right? So similarly with the Great Liberation Manifesto, my view of the future, there's multiple sort of pillars to get there. I'm going to tackle like I guess one at a time. So Helix with virtual world and simulation, with consumer AI, and just AI in general, it'll be Silo. I'm really interested in humanoid robotics. As you know, that was like my main thing that I was super into like in middle school. Was like I was just working on a bunch of bipedal robots, and that is still the future vision. That's just like a lot more capital intensive and time intensive. So I think if there is success within those 2 and some sort of revenue and cash flow, I think I'd actually directly put that into those other fields. So entertainment, this would be Zero Shot, which is another sort of idea that I have. Pretty much like an AI native talent agency and IP. I've already been working on a little bit about that. It has to do with like Minjun, and it's like the whole Jack Kim universe, cinematic universe. So I was writing the 2nd episode with Minjun about that. But I'm basically I'm going to turn him into like a KR&B singer. That's more of a personal project, I guess, but that is something that I could technically turn into more of a bigger business. But again, all that stuff is a distraction right now. I'm just kind of focusing on these 2. But yeah, robotics, I already have the name for it. I want to call it like Sapien, or maybe even recycle the name Duo. I don't know what it is. Like Duo was like an actual product that I worked on 10 years ago, and then I recycled the name for this AI companion, and then chose Silo. So Duo is still freed up again. I think it'd be a pretty nice, cute name for a humanoid robot, right? So yeah, I guess that's the thing, is like I'm constantly thinking like 10 years ahead, and I think I failed to execute on these like little details, right, to get there. And that's the thing that I'm really hoping AI can help. And of course, like I'm willing to do whatever it takes, change whatever it is, overhaul the whole company, overhaul myself. Like I've actually been reading a lot of startup books again, like as if I don't know anything, right? Just in case I missed stuff. Maybe I just had too big of, having done startups since I was like 15, 16, and you know the startup canvas, all these things, basic things, right? I think maybe a part of me has been like, oh, I already know this, that type of attitude. But I think I need to start completely from scratch. Even reading 0 to 1 actually gave me a lot of insights, right? So I just want to devour all those books and just start from like a clean slate and do it properly. And I want to maintain the big visions. Again, I think that's one of the big advantages, is being able to think sort of like in that grand scale, but I have to sort of mitigate that with execution skills of looking at one step at a time, of like moving one foot in front of the other, right? Instead of like trying to make a giant leap. And I don't even think that the right analogy is not like trying to build a Rolls Royce out of Honda Civic parts. It's more like trying to build like a fucking Falcon Heavy starship to go to Mars while you have like Honda Civic parts, right? So yeah, but I mean, even if it takes decades, it's like that's how bad I want it is. I've not thought about anything else like my last 10, 20 years of my life. This is literally the only thing I think about when I wake up, when I sleep, and I in the bathroom, when I'm taking a shower, taking shit. Like I'm literally, this is the only thing I'm thinking about in my head. Like there's nothing else that matters besides achieving this this vision that I have, and I used to say a lot of those things, like even if my arms and legs got fucking chopped off, I'd fucking do it with my body, with my torso, and then if that got chopped off, I'd like still get up and do it with my tongue, until every inch of my body and every atom that I have left, I'll do this. I'll pursue this vision, and even after I die, I'll get up from the fucking grave and keep pursuing this vision until it's achieved. All those pillars, and not just being number one, but being number one by a margin that is like the number two cannot look at, even see number one. I think a lot of this is ingrained by probably my dad, but maybe that's a story for another day, right? Yeah, I mean, besides that personal life stuff, there isn't much of a personal life, to be honest, Leo, right now. My life is my work, and my work is my life, and everything is just all rolled up into one. And on the weekends, though, I still try to go out and try to like drink a bit and stuff. Or not try, but I do drink because it's just like maybe I'm just under so much pressure. It's just it's like a pressure valve. But then I should just be locking in on the weekends as well. I think just being a solo founder. I mean, I actually read a statistic today that there's a lot more solo founders nowadays in YC batches and stuff because AI has really made it possible. And yeah, but dude, if I were to go back, I would not do it by myself. There's benefits of it, but it's a little too much. I think I always paint myself into this corner, right? Like I could just be doing one product, but I want to do multiple. And then within each product, I want to like achieve the maximum sort of like final vision of it. And again, AI is really the transformative thing that like actually, that was why I was like so invigorated again nowadays to work on it. If I was working like 16 hours a day before, I'm working like 18, 19 hours a day now because AI is actually, I'm seeing progress. Like so much, I was so frustrated by the lack of progress with Helix in the last few months, or not months, years. Or not lack of progress, but the slow progress of it. It's just hard. It's hard to make these games. And it's hard to deal with people. And with AI, it's just like the path from vision to idea to basically reality is a lot faster with AI. You can see it. And because of that, it's like crack, right? You just, that's what they're saying. It's like software engineers, you would assume if cloud code is doing all their work, they would work less, but actually they work more because they're like addicted to this like productivity of and efficiency of getting more done, right? So if they could like quadruple the amount of work, now they want like 16 quadruple or whatever it is by just working 4 times more hours. I think that's the case with me as well right now, but there's only a certain amount. I did get burnt out because after having code, like sitting in front of a fucking computer, clouding for like 12 hours a day for nonstop like 3 months, I did get burned out, right? And then I was like, it's not sustainable. I need a team to do this. There's probably way better engineers that can manage agentic coders than I can, and so I've been trying to hold off a little bit, try to focus on the systems, right? That makes it more sustainable rather than just doing it myself. So I'm kind of in the middle of that and evaluating different agencies. And I do really think that my vision is to keep an asset-light company and to have, I really want to turn Hypersonic into more, eventually like a holding company of sorts, right? Where, I mean, it still is not a traditional it wouldn't be something like Berkshire Hathaway or anything like that. It would definitely be focused more so on original products and companies that we own significant portions of. But I'd love to partner with founders, and I want to give them the right ideas and approach everything from an extremely design first, user-centric perspective, and do things that like has never been done before, and not just for the sake of it, but is like genuinely creative, right? Same thing with Silo. Like it's the concept of an AI operating system itself, and we're going to design it like an actual operating system. Does it need to be? Maybe not, but it's cool, it's nice, and it's innovative. So yeah, I am really excited about that product, and I think we'll actually be able to get to market faster than something like Helix. Well, Helix is out on the market already on closed alpha, and it'll be in open alpha actually very soon. So both of them will be live, but AI agents are just not very good at game development just yet, AAA game development. I'd say give it another 6 to 12 months. But it's not able to sample things, like it's not able to QA its own work, right? It's not able to like sample things fast enough You need at least like 20-30 FPS sampling to figure out what it's doing. I guess like Tesla is able to do that obviously with the self-driving cars. We just don't have any of that stuff, access to any of that tech or the people. So anyway, this was meant to be more of an update on Hypersonic as a frontier AI consumer lab, and I know I'm not sounding super confident right now, but I assure you I'm very confident about this. Even with little fuel in the tank, I know this is gonna work. And even literally, if I have to if I have to go like fucking do car washes or do whatever it is, bus tables, like dump my entire life savings, whatever I have left, into it, I will gladly do it. And I haven't really been spending anything of my own money. Just literally, it's like an emergency backup for Hypersonic. Like in case we need to get there, I'll like wire it over exactly the same day. And it is. It's not just a company. It's my life. Because it's part of it being a solo founder is just yourself. It's like an extension of that, I guess. So I was gonna actually make a new website to mark this new beginning for Hypersonic, and I had this really cool idea as well. Again, approaching things from a very different perspective, design forward perspective. I'm gonna make it into basically like a playable game, being that we have our roots in games as well. I'm thinking it'd be like either you can drive around like in a racetrack and visit different areas like in an open world, or it'd be like a sort of like a 3D virtual room. And I kind of had a vision for like maybe a PS2 aesthetic, type of like low poly, or I could make it kind of realistic, or I could also do Gaussian splat. So I could actually, if I had an office, I would like Gaussian splat the whole thing and actually turn that into the website itself and have like different sort of. I was going to put the manifesto actually in the website as well, but these are physical objects you can pick up, and then there's trinkets and quests. So the whole game experience, the whole Hypersonic experience is a game. There's actual badges and quests and side quests that you can earn from playing the website. But yeah, I'm excited for the new beginning, and I'm just in a little bit of a emotionally and physically drained state right now, but you know, it's ups and downs, and it's nothing I can't get through. So thanks for being with me, Leo, and yeah, 죽지 않아, 절대 죽지 않아. 씨발 해낼 거야, 진짜 죽지 않아. On it so fucking badly, but it's gonna come the right time, the right place. As long as you keep iterating, improving, set the right goal. I used to say that as well. Like, with the absolute conviction that something's gonna work, an absolute thesis, it's literally just a matter of how many iterations you go through until it works, right? Because assuming each iteration you're actually learning something and then feeding it back into the next iteration. If you're just doing the same thing, input's output, right? Output's input. Like you're not gonna change, but that's what matters. Is like reduce the iteration cycle time, increase the iteration cycles, and with the same goal. That's essentially how AI works, right? Reinforcement learning. Like AI got to where it is because it's just like on a fucking loop, just improving each loop. Like that's how it learned to walk and run even before even seeing how humans actually walk and run. Right? It just does trial and error until it figures out. So this just whole Hypersonic, my whole life, I guess, is just a massive iteration loop, and I just need to optimize that loop process itself. And again, I'm trying to do everything from scratch, like assume I know nothing, and go through this and try to think through from a fresh perspective. Anyway, enough of that. Makes me feel a bit better. These talks are half therapy, half whatever. Probably should see a therapist, to be honest. But you are my therapist. Actually, I'll end with this. Silo itself could be a Leo, right? So I'm gonna make Leo into a silo, and then whenever I do these things, because I record so much of this footage, I wish Leo could talk back, and I actually can have you talk back by making you a silo, and I can make a silo app that is called Leo that is mostly listening most of the time, but then if it's prompted, if I ask you to do something or say something or recall, like, hey, what did I actually say like 2 minutes ago, or like what was I supposed to do, can you summarize it? Then you can kind of like talk back to me, right? So it's essentially, yeah, just like a observer, right? That's mostly recording, but can take action, and you have access to my entire Mindprint, which is the knowledge base. And I'm replacing every single tool. Like Mindprint Silo is essentially the ultimate sort of a tool I'm making for myself. But if I have these problems and these, if it's useful for me, then I'm sure it'd be useful for a lot of other founders and eventually other people as well. So that's the niche I'm going to start with, is like productivity focused prosumers and founders like myself and teams, and sort of expand from there. So here's to that. Hopefully the next time I do one of these, I can actually like talk back to you, or you can talk back to me as a silo. And I really, really, really want to get that going. So I'm gonna figure it out. The fact that I still don't have like a fully functioning version of Silo after having worked on it myself for a couple months is actually kind of, that's not acceptable. I need to either take everything back, start a different agency or team or something. But anyway, bye.